When you talk about bumping a player, it's pretty much
great courage. One that says the bump is dead, that's how you deliver it.
What is going on, YouTube universe? My name is Trent, and welcome to my AFL channel, The Hip and Shoulder, where we discuss everything Australian rules football. And today, given that round 10 kicks off later tonight, I think it's time we got our tips locked in for round 10 and reflect on round 9, which finally, for the first time in a very long time, I can proudly say was a decent round tipping-wise by myself. I do want to kind of preface this entire video, though, just to remind you all that there is not going to be a round recap podcast dropping for round 9. And if you haven't seen the post on my community tab, that is just because I have been dealing with the loss of my Uma, my grandmother. And I appreciate everybody that has reached out to me either on the community tab or on social media to give me your well wishes and your condolences. I appreciate it a lot. It's just taken a lot out of myself mentally, and I haven't been in a position to sit down and do that podcast because it does take a lot of time to sit down and record, and all the researching I do into, you know, working out all the different players to give votes to based off of their efforts, and just going through each game. And it's an effort, it's a task, not just the recording, but then the editing and the rendering and everything else. So I think I can forgive myself for missing that this week. It'll be back next week in full force, and with some formatting changes that hopefully will make things a little bit more fluent moving forward. But today's all about tipping, and we're going to reflect on round 9 before we dive into round 10, as we always do. I tipped 7 out of 9. I am very happy with the turnout that I got for last week. We tipped Carlton. We went by 17. They got up by 1 point, though. I'll take the win. The win's a win. We backed Geelong to beat Port Adelaide, and that blew up in our faces quite severely. I was praying that they would come back at least for the draw, but it wasn't to be. Sydney absolutely demoralised Fremantle, which I thought was going to be the case. I feel Fremantle performed better away from the scoreboard. Take the scoreboard out of it, I think they didn't play as bad as the scoreboard reflects. Hawthorn against St Kilda. A lot of people, for whatever reason, have come out saying that they were shocked that Hawthorn won. But given this was played in Tasmania, and Hawthorn tend to play out of their skins down there, I don't see how this was an upset. It was, to me, Hawthorn should have gone into this game as favourite if they didn't. We went GWS over Essendon, and unfortunately that was our second loss for the round. We then went Bulldogs over Richmond. I'm glad I didn't change that tip. Gold Coast over North Melbourne, Collingwood over West Coast, and Adelaide over Brisbane, which ended in a draw, which would have given you a point either way, regardless of who you ended up tipping. I'm still alive in the gauntlet, thank fuck for that. And we are 1 round away from the minimum 5 starting as well, which I might very well lose, because there's been plenty of rounds where I haven't scored minimum 5. But reflecting on the competition as a whole, we did have one person tip 8 out of 9, and that was my friend Con Madge Tigers 77. So, sir, congratulations to you for tipping the most correct amount of tips for round 9. And reflecting on the leaderboard, he has changed his name again this week. He's going to do it every fucking week, this bastard. But, Hero, I am Asian. Yeah, try to get me cancelled for saying that, you fuck.
got it!
And Damien, my mate, the same Damien that formulates all of the multis for you guys when it comes to my tipping videos, he has taken a 1 tip lead over Dusty Fendoff 4 and Matt Lamb 24. 2 people that have also been in my tipping competitions for the last few years, and they are just ahead of Benny Craig and Den Cash, with Team Wiggles, Gramercy Riff 78, Frio 90, Saintly 12, and Macca 0303 rounding out the top 10. Despite my 7 out of 9, I'm still sitting second last, and that was the running joke all week with a couple of my mates. I was so happy with the round I had, and they said, you're still going to be second last, and that turned out to be the case, and I am doing terribly. The only person who is doing worse is my old man, and I think that's only because he hasn't been getting his tips in. Similarly to Mason's limp Cox, I don't think he's been getting his tip in either. Looking ahead to round 10, I'm going to roll the dice a little bit, I feel, with some of my selections, especially the first cab off the rank, which is tonight at TIO Stadium with Gold Coast taking on Geelong. Gold Coast have dropped a couple of players, younger players albeit. Their biggest out is probably Jared Witts, and next to that is probably Nick Holman, who plays a very good defensive forward role. Geelong, however, no Reece Stanley, no Jeremy Cameron, no Tom Hawkins. Huge, because they're now going to be off of players like Ollie Dempsey and Oliver Henry to deliver up forward for them. I'm going to tip the Gold Coast Suns here, and I'm going to tip them by 17 points. I know the teens have been my go-to for tips. I have a reason why I'm tipping this way. That is because when it comes to the Gold Coast playing at TIO, they have played 5 games up there, I think, collectively. They are undefeated at that ground, yet to drop a game. They won last week. They've had an extra week to climatise to the weather up there. Geelong have been up there for a few days, but is it going to be enough? And is Jeremy Cameron and Tom Hawkins not in this lineup going to be too big of a hole to fill? This is going to test Geelong, but I'm confident to back in Gold Coast tonight. Friday night at the SCG, a very tasty clash. This could very well end up being game of the round. It is Sydney taking on Carlton. I don't see Sydney dropping a game to Carlton at home. If this was played at the MCG or Marvel Stadium, I might have been more inclined to go Carlton's way. But I think Sydney are playing too superior a brand of football here to drop the ball. I mean, they're playing so well collectively that players like Luke Parker are left playing in the VFL because they can't break into this team. That says a lot about how Sydney has grown this year. They should win this one quite comfortably. Saturday afternoon, MCG, Collingwood taking on Adelaide. I am going to tip Collingwood, however, we know last year Adelaide rocked up and pushed Collingwood to their limits, and with Adelaide, with their bounce back that they've had over recent weeks, could very well push Collingwood to their limits again. But I think Collingwood have found their systems, they've found their form. As I yawn, I apologise. Collingwood should win this one by a couple of goals. Later that afternoon at NG Stadium, don't ask me where the fuck that is because I could not tell you. We have GWS taking on the Bulldogs. GWS obviously coming off of a loss to Essendon, while the Bulldogs pretty much played against a pack of witches' hats last week at the MCG, and it was disappointing to watch. I'm actually almost glad I fell asleep before half-time in that game because I don't think I would have been able to enjoy that second half all too much. This has become a modern-day rivalry between these two. I always love seeing these two teams play. Josh Kelly is out for 6 to 8 weeks with an injury, and the Bulldogs have been rolling the dice with playing some young kids. I'm going to go GWS. Might change subject to team selection, but I'm liking GWS this year infinitely greater than the Bulldogs, and I think even though the Bulldogs belted Richmond last week, I think GWS are better off for the loss to Essendon than Bulldogs are for the easy win because they could go into easy mode a little bit and kind of fumble the ball a little bit against GWS. We'll see how it rolls out. Marvel Stadium Saturday night, Fremantle taking on St Kilda. I'm actually going to go Fremantle to upset St Kilda here. Even though Fremantle will be without Sean Darcy, I think Luke Jackson has the ability to go over the top of Rowan Marshall. Max King has to do something here, but I don't know whether he'll get much of the ball with someone like Alex Pearce playing on him. I just feel Fremantle have been looming for a win, and this is probably their most winnable game they'll get for a while. Saturday night rounds out at the Gabba, with Brisbane hosting Richmond. Now, it would be such a Richmond thing to do to get belted by the Bulldogs at the MCG last week, and then this week go to the Gabba, backs against the wall, and win. And we know Richmond can win at the Gabba because they've won a fucking grand final at the Gabba. But I've got to start tipping with my head here. Brisbane's going to win this one, and if they don't win this by 10 plus goals, there is something incredibly wrong. Richmond now find themselves in a precarious position similar to what we've seen from West Coast because 23 players get selected for a weekend of football. Richmond have 26 players available. They're scraping the barrel. The injuries that have hit us this year are something fucking shocking. I think we picked up collectively 7 injuries last weekend over the course of the seniors and the VFL. It's starting to really take the piss. Marvel Stadium Sunday afternoon, Essendon taking on North Melbourne. That's all but a formality. Essendon should win by at least 10 goals. If they don't, again, something incredibly wrong. number one pressure team in the comp. I don't see how they couldn't go 60 plus against North Melbourne. Adelaide Oval, Port Adelaide taking on Hawthorn. I'm going to tip Port Adelaide, but I'm expecting Hawthorn to rock up and actually test them, push them to their limits. It's good to see Hawthorn playing some good footy. And Optus Stadium rounds out the round with West Coast hosting Melbourne. I'm going to tip Melbourne, but I'm banking on West Coast, again, similar to Hawthorn, to push Melbourne to their absolute limits because they've really played incredibly well at Optus this year. Just to have a little recap before we jump over to the gauntlet, I'm going with Gold Coast, Sydney, Collingwood, GWS, Fremantle, Brisbane, Essendon, Port Adelaide, and Melbourne. And I think for the gauntlet, I am going to go with Brisbane as my tip. It might come back to haunt me, but considering I've already got Port Adelaide locked out, I've got St Kilda locked out, and I've got the Gold Coast locked out, I could roll the dice here and go with Fremantle. But I think at this point, anybody playing Richmond or North, you pretty much could lock in for a win. I'm gonna take Brisbane off the board early. They've wavered a little bit too much for my liking this year. So if I can lock them up now, knowing that they should get a guaranteed win, I'm happy to do so. With the tips out of the way, we're going to wrap things up as we have over the last few weeks with the multis that my mate Damien has thrown together for you all. And I threw caution to the wind by throwing a comment to you guys last week, asking whether you would like to see some slips that are more sure things in the way that they're shorter odds and they should come through, as opposed to the bigger kind of big hitting kind of Hail Mary hits. And some people were saying, you know, throwing one Hail Mary out there while giving some easy kind of selections would probably be the way to go. And again, I just want to preface once more, chances are you're about to lose. Gamble responsibly. Make sure you're not fucking throwing your life savings away. I'm not at all by any means telling you guys to 100% back yourselves in and go with these multis. I don't endorse gambling in any way, shape or form, but just make sure if you do, set yourself your deposit limits and do so with caution. Don't be a dickhead. I've said it last week and I'll say it again. This is a dickhead-free zone, okay? Regardless of the fact that I've been tipping like one over recent weeks. The first multi we have for the weekend is a 7-leg same-game multi for the Sydney-Carlton game. We have Harry Mackay, Chad Warner, Tom Papley to all kick a goal at any time. Charlie Curnow to kick 2+ goals. We have Patrick Cripps and Isaac Heaney for 25+ disposals each. And Sam Walsh for 30+ disposals, and that is going to net you $7.50. We then have a 14-leg same-game multi. This one is one that's a bit of a bigger hitter, more of your Hail Mary type, and this is for the Essendon North Melbourne game. We have Jake Stringer, Nick Larkey, Peter Wright, and Matt Guelphy to all kick 2+ goals. We have Bailey Scott, Jai Caldwell, Archie Perkins, and Mason Redmond to all have 15+ disposals. We have Nick Martin to have 25+ disposals, Harry Sheasel, Darcy Parish, Sam Durham, and Andrew McGrath for 20+ disposals, and Kyle Langford to kick 4+ goals, and that is going to return you $26. Now, as your Hail Mary, the big hitter, if you want to combine both of those multis together and just take off the Jake Stringer goal-scoring leg of the Essendon North Melbourne multi, this will net you $127.50 if it comes through. If it comes through, you're throwing it up and it's going to be out of the park. You're going to be a very happy person. That is it for this video. Hopefully this week I can not only remain in the gauntlet but get another good return, because I'm still 11 tips behind the lead. I just want to hopefully get my shit together well enough to get into the top 10 to finish the year off. I think that would be huge. That is it from me. Do leave a like on the video if you enjoy what I do here. Do hit that subscribe button if you want to get on board with the community we are building here. That's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend, and as always, I will catch you guys next time.